history, and it's very encouraging for us. He is an electrical engineer, PhD from Oregon State University, and then got his interest in Indian history. So he's traveled India, this, that, and read a lot during the time. Right now, he's a visiting faculty at Hindu University of America, Rishi Hood University, India, Arsh Seva University, Kendram, Coimbatore, and Advisory Council of Dharma Civilization Foundation. So please welcome Dr. Raj Vedam.
Thank you. Namaste. And my thanks to Devender ji, Subhash Gupta ji, and other elders for inviting me here to offer these talks. We started last week, and talk one is over out of three. So the remaining three are to go. So as soon as...
Oh, sorry. Technical issue.
But we'll still be able to share.
No, but we have to put it up.
Thank you. Yeah. We should still keep it shared.
Yeah. Host. Co-host. Okay. Co-host.
So when we get started over there, let me quickly recap about the last class, the last talk rather. So in the last talk, we talked about the toxicity of the narratives that are thrust on the Hindu civilization. We learned that 5 agencies are controlling the narratives. To recount, they were the colonial people, the missionaries, the Eurocentric, the socialist academia, and the Marxist. These 5 agencies have got convergent ideologies. It's convergent towards it's convergent towards looking at Hinduism as backward, primitive, superstitious, and anachronism that deserves to be destroyed if we want to have a classless utopian society in the future. That's as far as the socialists and the Marxists are concerned. As far as the Eurocentrics, the missionaries, and the colonial people are concerned, Hinduism is an impediment to Christianity. They couldn't convert the Hindus. It was an impediment. It had to be destroyed for their activities. So these convergent ideologies have led to such toxic narratives out there. Whatever you see on the Hindu civilization, whether it is in the NCERT textbooks, whether it is in the Constitution of India, whether it's in academia, movies that you see, media, everything is toxic. And the reason is 5 agencies are controlling the narrative. And today, 2 more have joined the narrative. They are the wokeism, what we call the woke brigade, right? The left brigade, basically, as well as Islamism. Islamism has found common cause. Everybody wants to show they are victims, right? They are victims, and the aggressors are the Hindus. They want to show that. So towards that, we are seeing a lot of these narratives. Okay, I think you can see my screen now. So let me get started. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. So topic 1 was last class, like the last talk, like I said, and today we are addressing the second one. Are we so-called Aryans and Dravidians, right? This is the distortion that has been thrust upon us ever since they came about with something called Aryan invasion, which morphed into Aryan migration, that is morphed into a tourism theory today. So we have got some problems over here. Anyway, they say that we meaning the Indian civilization, are Aryans, Dravidians, and tribals. In the last talk, we saw the spuriousness of some of these narratives. We said in India, the word Arya has always meant an honorific, that if you're a noble person with dharmic qualities, you're an Arya. As an anti-example, we gave Dushasana. Dushasana in Mahabharata is an Anarya for his role in disrobing Draupadi. However, the British, primarily the people like several of the colonialists, they converted this into a racial category in service of what they were doing. They made it into a racial category called Aryan. The English word Aryan is an invention by them to thrust upon you, convert it into a racial category. Similarly, Dravida has always meant a geographical region in India, right? The triangular part of India. Adi Shankara says, I'm a Dravida Shishyu in Saundarya Lahiri. He says that, right? However, this was converted into racial category called Dravidian by the missionary called Caldwell for their own purposes. So right at the outset, we see we have problems with Aryan, Dravidian, and so on. And today's talk, I'm going to talk about this. Summary of talk one, we talked about these frameworks, no a big deal over there. We also talked about the motivations for colonial, Eurocentric, missionary, socialist, Marxist, how they have convergent ideologies to show Christianity is only true religion, superiority to the white Europeans, and by destroying Hinduism, we can get a classless utopian society. With those kind of ideas, we find all the attacks on Hinduism, along with Islamism, Dravidianism, and others that are also working with deracinated frameworks. So the impact, we said, is that every aspect of your ancestors' accomplishments have been taken away from them. They say that you meaning the Aryans who came from Central Asia, were nomadic barbarians, people who didn't have a script, therefore they were uncivilized. They had an oral tradition, but they did not have a script. They were running around in India from 1500 BCE onwards with the so-called caste cow and all this kind of nonsense. And they destroyed the earlier superior civilization of Harappa. They destroyed them. And they say that you only got civilization after you made contact in Magadha with the Greeks. Alexandrian Greeks, 300 BC, suddenly we got Brahmi script. Suddenly we became civilized. They say that, look, you're a young civilization. You have not had enough gestation time to build up knowledge in astronomy, mathematics, and other things. So if you got superior knowledge in Surya Siddhanta, Aryabhatiya, and things of that nature, you must have copied it from the earlier civilizations, like the Greeks, Babylonians. That is why today they say Aryans brought Sanskrit into India from Levant. Brahmi came from Aramaic from the Levant, and astronomy from Babylonians. Math sciences came from Greece. Turkic Muslims got us culture, cuisine, architecture, music, civilization. British got us science, technology, rational thought. Even Bhakti. Bhakti was taught to us by St. Thomas, who landed in Muziris in Kerala. So these are the kind of narrators that are thrust on us. Every aspect of our accomplishments has been taken away. We are denied agency in trying to narrate our own history. This is what we see. And I said that as a scientist, I'm looking at models, I'm looking at rational, logical analysis models, methods, frameworks, and such things. And I'm looking at all of this data. This is what we summarized in the last class, last talk. We also talked about one major perversion. The perversion was the so-called caste system. I said we only have Jati, Varna, Kulam, Gotra. You want to have a talk with me? I can only talk to you about Jati, Varna, Kulam, Gotra. I don't know what caste is. Caste is an invention by the British and thrust upon us. So we highlighted this, and I showed that every aspect of obligatory adjectives such as immobile, hierarchical, discriminatory, upper, lower, all these things are inventions of these people, 5 agencies, to try to show that you're aggressors, that you're oppressors. I took several of those things and showed they were all utter nonsense. I showed hierarchy was manufactured. We had no hierarchy. Purusha Suktam does not talk about hierarchy. Vajrasuchi Upanishad does not talk about hierarchy. Instead, we showed that by looking at the acharam and saucha practices of various communities, the British concocted a hierarchy and they thrust it upon us. So these are the kind of things that we are seeing. Mobility is seen throughout India in every time frame, but they made us into a rigid kind of a system with upper, lower, and things of that nature. So with this oppressor, oppressed, victimhood. So we had to reject any discussion on caste. This is what I said. Last time, I also said that your children are empowered if they can go to any aggressor. Aggressor here is a converter who wants to convert you into Christianity or Islam. If your child can say, what is the goal of life in your way of thinking? Their goal of life is to follow a divine law. Somebody gave the law to a prophet, or Jesus said, I'm the only way to the Father through the Son, all these kind of things. If you believe that, then in the afterlife, you'll be admitted to heaven or everlasting hell. You'll burn forever and ever and ever and burn if that jealous God does not admit you. Believe it or not, many of the Hindu kids are converted because of this. I have worked with converted kids. And this is the main thing that converts them. Something as irrational as the biblical hell, Islamic hell, that is enough to convert them. So if you can teach your children rationality, logic, and understanding Hindu faith, dharma, you will be able to save them. So if your children can articulate What is the goal in life? The goal in life for Hindus is to seek knowledge, to dispel the avidya about my existence. Any sampradaya you take says, dispel avidya. How do you dispel avidya? Acquire knowledge. Acquire knowledge based on the sampradaya. Your Samkhya, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Mimamsa, all these darshanas, Advaita, are telling you based on the pramanas that you accept in your sampradaya, you see the reality of things around you. You see the reality, admit that reality, and build your knowledge. So in this lifetime or across lifetimes, based on my karma phala, I can dispel this ignorance and gain vidya. This is our understanding of what the goal of life is. Their understanding of goal of life is no knowledge, nothing matters. Your goal in life, follow the divine dictated law. That's why the metaphor in Christianity that you are a sheep, follow the shepherd. Christ is a shepherd. Just follow him blindly, don't question. If you question it as blasphemy, your neck will be cut off, right? Don't question. Whereas in the Hindu Dharma, everything is questioning. Upanishad is entirely questioning. Shishya is asking Guru questions and learning. If you're not questioning, you're not learning. If your children can articulate this one slide, you are on your way to recovering your identity. So just please internalize this. So that was my conclusion over there. For many, many years as a scientist, I've been trying to rebut this false historiography. So I have tried many, many things, whether from textual evidence, archaeology, genetics, climatology, geology, astronomy. I don't have the time today to go through many of these things. I'll try to breeze through these. First of all, the common sense. We have got so much of internal evidence, but we are blinded to it thanks to our deracination and propaganda that has blinded us, right? I put over here a selection of Indian greats, right, from various places, from various timelines and geographies, whether it is Abhinavagupta, Adi Shankara, Agathir, Andal, going all the way to Yajnavalkya, Vyasa, Vishakadatta, and I ask, who over here is talking about Aryan invasion? Who over here is saying we used to live beyond the mountains and we came into Bharat through these mountains? Who over here is saying we came and pushed the people living there to the south? Who in the south is saying we used to live in the north and we have come over here? Southern India has got cultural memory going to Sangam period, going to 10,000 years. First Sangam period for 3,000 years or so. I don't know what is happening. Can somebody help me out over here? What is going on over here? Okay. Somehow it changed to this one. I'm not very sure how. Anyway, Southern India has got cultural memory going back to several thousands of years. That is talking about 3 Sangam periods going to 10,000 years. But you don't find that, you don't find anybody talking about Aryan invasion or any such thing. So the common sense narrative is that we have got so many texts from various timelines. Not one of them, I challenge anybody in this room, show me one text that is saying we came from outside. Show me one text that says he's a North Indian, he's a South Indian. Show me one text that says darkies are fairer people. No such thing. Forever and ever, we have seen ourselves as a dharmic civilization. We have seen ourselves as one people, Bharatiya, Bharatavarsha. This is how we are seen. This is the common sense staring at us. But then we believe the British, 200 years ago, somebody came and thrust those ideas into our head that we are Aryans, Dravidians, and tribals, and we believe this nonsense. This is the common sense you need to talk about. And going forward, the text evidence, who are we? In the Puranas, or here Bhagavata Purana, it says that there was a saintly king of Dravida Desha who became known as Vaivasvata Manu. He migrated from the south to the north, and through his progeny, Ikshvaku on one side to the male, and through Ila, his daughter, on this side, the Chandravamshi and the Suryavamshi, all the lineages of India, everything in the Puranic literature, Itihasa literature, comes from them. So the peopling of India, according to ourselves, internal evidence, talks about this. So going forward, there was a British judge called Parjita in 1920. True to his profession, he wanted to see the evidence. Don't talk to me nonsense. Show me the evidence. He was all about evidence. In 1920, everybody was gung-ho on linguistic analysis, talking about Aryan invasion and so on. He made an analysis and he says, point number 1, Indian tradition knows nothing about Aryan invasion. The Northwest and Punjab is not any special place. The special places of Sanatan Dharma is Varanasi on the east side. If they had come from northwest, Punjab would be the place where we have our sacred places. We don't have anything sacred over there. Maybe in Thaneshwar, we had a Jyotirlinga that Muslims destroyed. But then there's no sacred place over there. Everything is in Benares. And he's going on and saying, point 7, where I've underlined it, he says, all the copious tradition that the Hindus have, was it falsely fabricated? Has the truth been absolutely lost? If this Aryan invasion theory is correct, is this probable? Point 8. If the tradition of the Indians is false, why, how, whose interest was it fabricated? Thousands of years of Indian literature that knows nothing about the Aryan invasion. Is it all fabricated, some grand conspiracy? Why does it not talk about it? So like a judge, he's asking the right questions. Unfortunately, his voice was drowned out because of linguistics theory was very, very strong in those periods. Material evidence. In archaeology, we expect that if a new civilization has come to a place, there must be change in the material record. Material record are things like, for example, pottery, ceramic. Each place will have a distinctive pottery style. So if we see some kind of evidence of pottery that has changed in a certain period of time, we can say that maybe some new people have come with a new technology. And how do we date these things? Most of the pots are used for cooking, so there's some carbon content on them. We can do C14, carbon 14 dating, and we can talk about the timeline, right? So ceramics are very important in archaeology. So we have in India things like ochre-colored pottery and grayware, redware, and other such things over various time frames. But I want to show only this main table over here. Wikipedia, for example, tries to falsify the narrative by showing where is shown the arrow mark, the cemetery etch or OCP that put it down to 1900 BCE to enable the Aryan invasion. However, this research paper I'm showing the bottom over there is saying from Code DGN onwards, 3700 to 3000 BC, we are seeing OCP-like pottery. In other words, ochre-colored pottery is present in India from more than 5,000 to 6,000 years. However, the people who are doing Aryan invasion nonsense are falsifying the record, trying to say it's only available from 1900 BC to conveniently make it possible for Aryans to have brought in this technology into India. So if you look at genetics, there is so much in genetics. I'm not going to bore you to death about it. My talks talk significantly about it. But bottom line, there are 2 or 3 ways how we can study genetics. These are all mathematical measures. Genetics will take your saliva swab or maybe blood sample, and they will look at all the mutations we carry. Remember, our chromosomes, we have got 22 pairs of autosomes and 1 pair of gender chromosomes. And everybody should have the same chromosomes. That's why we are humans, right? If we have differences, then we are not human. But unfortunately, while the meiosis is happening, meiosis is when eggs are fertilized and the splitting happens and so on, sometimes copy errors are there. Because of those copy errors, some small changes may be there in the genetic record. Those are called mutations. So over the years, we have accumulated great numbers of mutations. So people can now trace back and say, do you have this mutation? How far back did this mutation come? Was it there in India? Was it there in Iran? Was it there in somewhere else, Iraq and such things? So they can trace things like that. Anyway, the first set of mathematical indices was something called fixation index. Fixation index means if I take myself, the genetic sample, I have, let's say, 20 mutations. Somebody else has got 25 mutations. Somebody else got 23 mutations. Somebody else has got something else. If I take the sum total of Indian mutations and I say all Indians, totally there are 30 mutations, different people have got different, then I see what is my distance from that 30. It's a mathematical measure. In that mathematical measure, what they expected was we can split up Aryans and Dravidians into 2 buckets. Aryans will show lower fixation index, Dravidians will show greater. Or they thought by the Chaturvarna system that the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Shudras, they'll also be in different buckets. To their surprise, they could not do that. They could not differentiate based on fixation index, north, south, Brahmin, Shudra, nothing could be differentiated. We all have similar fixation index, meaning that at the genetic level, I cannot tell you're a Brahmin, you're a Kshatriya, you're a North Indian, you're a South Indian, Aryan, Dravidian. Nobody can do that. If anybody does that, he's bluffing. You can say right away, which scientific paper is talking about that? None of them do. Similarly, there are other issues also. I'm not going to talk about it. My talks are done significantly on this. But this is my confidence level. If there are concerns that I have with methodology, in the models used in genetics, methodology, data, samples, and claims, there are some issues based on which we can say if somebody says in this room, somebody has got certain mutation and somebody else does not have it. That is a fact. It's a fact because I can go to the laboratory and I can verify, yes, this person has a mutation. I don't have. No problem with that. But if somebody comes and says, in this room, 25% of them have got a mutation that came from Persia, from Iran, and places like that, I have problems with that. If somebody says that in this room, 40% of the genetic content came from Central Asia, again, there are problems with that. The mathematical methods do not lend to such claims. That is the problem. So with that, we just move on. And in my talk over here, which I've shown, 2018 talk, I talk significantly about genetics and the mathematical problems. And this paper came out in 2022 in Nature Science Reports. This man is saying exactly what I said. I said there are problems with the mathematical methods. He is pointing out all the problems. If you see the last underlying line, PCA has a biasing role in genetic investigations. 32,000 to 216,000 genetic studies should be reevaluated based on the wrong mathematics over there. This is something that I had highlighted because this is my bread and butter. I work with mathematics. I work with computational sciences. I know what the issues are, what kind of claims you can make, and you simply can't make these claims. And this paper was a validation of whatever I have been highlighting. So moving forward, climate evidence. I have shown in my talks that India has a clear before and after. We have a before that goes to 3000 BC to 2500 BC when great intellectual traditions were there, Vedic literature was composed and so on. And clearly there is an after when that tradition has been lost. So this is linked to the monsoon failure that India experienced in 2000 BCE. If you look at this Nature paper, it says 200-year drought doomed the Indus Valley. You can imagine today, if the monsoons fail for 1 year or 2 years, the farmers are so difficult to repay their loans, they commit suicide. 3-4 years, monsoon fails, GDP of India is going to fall. We are still an agrarian country, right? All these things happen. Plus, you can imagine, northern India, rivers are fed by glacier melt. Southern India is only fed by monsoons. So if there is no monsoon for 5-6 years, the rivers would really run thin in southern India. Now I want you to imagine 200 years. 200 years of monsoon failure. Southern India would have been a dust bowl. Over 4 generations of 50 years each, the motivation won't be for knowledge, Vedas, philosophy, nothing, but survival. How do I survive? That would have been the primary motivation of our ancestors 4,000 years ago. And we have evidence of this all over the place. I'm not going to read this. This is a paper that came in Science that is talking about the same thing using isotopic evidence. They took samples from all these kind of places. And this graph of theirs that shows the x-axis over here is age, years before present. 4,000 years before present, India experienced one of the driest spells based upon their laboratory experiments of what they've done. So this correlates what we're saying. India went through 200 years of monsoon failure, and this has caused a puncture to our civilization. Before there was a great civilization, after that, we seem to have to claw our way once again back to knowledge. We seem to have lost a lot of it. So evidence is there that people left India. Evidence is there that our ancestors went out of India rather than into India. And we can see that in cattle genetics, agricultural genetics. This is a paper that came in 2019 in Science. And this is saying in northern Iraq, southern Turkey, where Mitanni people were there, Hittite people were there, suddenly the Indian humped bull, the hump bull I've shown over there, very, very familiar thing, right? We see in every Indian village, we see that. This cattle is endemic to India, nowhere else. But this particular variety, suddenly the genetic, the archaeological remains went through the roof. And they're saying Bos indicus came from the Indus Valley, stimulated by the onset of the current geological age 4,200 years ago by a widespread multi-century drought. So when drought was there in India, people took the riches. Riches is cattle, right? They took their cattle and went to where the water is. Where was the water? In the Fertile Crescent. Fertile Crescent is where the Tigris River, Euphrates River, Nile River valleys are. So there, no passport visa those days, right? You just go and settle down. If those people don't let you, you fight with them. So there is evidence that our Kshatriyas went over there, fought with them, established kingdoms over there. Great evidence is there. In my talks, in my course at HUA, I talk about these things. So anyway, I also shown in the Louvre Museum, Akkadian seal. It shows this Indian longhorn buffalo also over there. And Indian buffalo was preferred because they were arid adapted, drought resistant, whereas the Central Asian animals were not drought resistant. That's why people preferred the Indian animals. And this is the Soviet researcher, Russian rather, who's talking about the same thing. He's now correlating the zebos along with human mutations out of India into Europe. And he's saying that this accounts for the language migration in addition. If you think that Latin, Sanskrit, and Greek are related, the reason is this particular migration. This is a paper that came from Lucknow in Institute of Paleosciences in 2018. This paper says paddy was cultivated in the Ganga plain going back to the early Holocene era. More than 9,000 years ago, paddy has been cultivated in India. This invalidates the claim that paddy was invented in Turkey and came to India through such means. It invalidates that claim. Mouse migration. This researcher in 2007 in genome biology, he wanted to see where is the ancestor of our common house mice. And to his surprise, he found the genetic ancestor of the house mice is in India. It is from India, it has gone to Africa, to Europe, to Central Asia, to Southeast Asia, Madagascar. Everything from India it has gone. Today we know that if you have a barn where you store paddy, mice are going to come. Wherever you store food grains, mice will come over there. As human migrations go out of India, taking the agriculture technology, mice are going to follow them. So mice are a proxy for human migrations. We saw the genetic proxy in cattle migration, zebu cattle. Now we are seeing it in mice. So all these studies are telling us a story that Indians have left this place and gone on. This is a paper that came in 2022 that is talking about archaeobotany. It's talking about cereals, things like millets, ragi, and things of that crop. How did it even come to not Central Asia, but to Babylon and places like that, to Sumeria? And the oldest ones are shown in a yellow circle and the latest one in the red circle. And in this paper, they're making the claim that it's from India through the sea route, from Lothal, literally, crossing to the Persian Gulf, Dilmun, and so on, agriculture has come into this part of the world. So once again, showing contact from India into Babylon, that is where this knowledge of agriculture has gone on. I'll skip this. So there is also a great deal of evidence in our astronomy. Indian texts contain great numbers of astronomical phenomena which we can use for dating. For example, we see antiquity in several things. Indian astronomy was discovered by several of these Westerners in this time frame. Everybody that are shown in red font were against the antiquity of Indian astronomy because they believed in the linguistic theory, Aryan invasion. They believed that Aryans came to India in 1500 BC and composed the Vedas in India. Therefore, the Vedic literature can't show antiquity before 1500 BC. So everybody in red, till David Pingree, who was a professor in New York in 2005, till that time, this is the kind of Western reaction to Indian astronomy. But prior to that, when they did not have this Aryan invasion distortion, they were comfortable accepting the antiquity of Indian astronomy. So the Indian astronomical model is one of nakshatras and Rashi, right? Every day, Indians observe that the moon appears on the eastern horizon at a different time, one muhurta later every day almost. Therefore, the star in the background is different. They also observed it takes 27 days for the moon to come back to the same nakshatra or the star. So they divided the entire ecliptic to 27 segments and they gave the names of the wives of the moon. So the story that Chandra married the 27 daughters of King Daksha comes from this particular observation, and that is a nakshatra model. And we had a lunar month. That's why I say Chitra, Vishaka, Jeshta. These are all the nakshatras in the outer circle. Below that is a lunar month. If the full moon appears in the Chitra nakshatra, that month is called Chaitra Masa. In the northern part of India, they use the Purniyamanta month. In the southern part of India, they use the Amavasya as the indicator of the year. Therefore, it's offset by 15 days over there. So in southern India, the month begins with Amavasya. So we also had the Rashi model, division of the sky in 30 degree segments, 12 of them. that tracks the Shankrantis, the movement of the sun. So Indians had the concept of sidereal measurement. Where is the moon? Which nakshatra is it in every day? They also had the concept of phase of the moon, Tithi. What is the Tithi of the moon? From Amavasya to Paurnami and back to Amavasya. They also had the concept of Shankranti. Where is the sun at any given point? So enormous intellectual activity went into developing calendars. I'm not going to talk about that today. And this is a listing of nakshatras in two of our ancient books, Vedanga Jyotisha, Surya Siddhanta, and the star, the English name of the star. Kritika, for example, is Pleiades, Eta Tauri. Rohini is Aldebaran, which is Alpha Tauri. Mrigashirsha, that is Lambda Orionis, and so on. And my own nakshatra is Revati, which is Zeta Piscean, and so on. So these are all the identifications of the nakshatras along with the Western constellation names. And this, once again, is a common sense slide for us. These are the names of the nakshatras in various languages of India, whether it's Sanskritam, Telugu, Kannada, Hindi, Gujarati, Marathi, Tamil, Malayalam. We find the same model. We find the same astronomy model throughout India. This is not something peculiar to northern India or to southern India, western India, and so on. We find the same. There are small regional differences. For example, the names, the sixth line, Ardra Nakshatra becomes Tiruvadirai in Tamil, right? Or Ashlesha became Ailiam. So small changes are there, indicating the enormous antiquity. Something is so old, the regional divergences now. This is showing we, in Bharatavarsha, we had a common astronomy model. So this is the physics of the Earth. I'm not going to go into deep detail over here. Take a look at the second one. It is called Milankovitch cycle, the axial precession. Earth, in addition to rotation once in 24 hours, in addition to going around the sun in 365.24 days, where it is pointing to the axis of rotation, that is tracing a slow path in the sky, and that takes 26,000 years to complete. Why is that important? Because we always said at vernal equinox, what was the nakshatra at the vernal equinox point? That point will change because of this rotation. Knowing this mathematics, we can go to our Vedic literature and say, what is the observation our ancestors made? When was it true? Going back in time. So first thing, what is the antiquity of Vedanga Jyotisha? Vedanga Jyotisha is written by Lagada. Lagada wrote it. It is an appendix to Rig Veda and Yajur Veda also. So many people try to say that Weber, 500 BC, William Jones, 1100, Tilak said something. Dikshit came closest to 1400 BC. Inside Vedanga Jyotisha, there is a line that says, winter solstice occurred when the sun and moon came together in Dhanishta Nakshatra. That is our clue. So we have to ask ourselves, when was winter solstice at Dhanishta Nakshatra? So this is now a simulation I made in the planetarium software. The line at the center is 90 degrees. That is the north celestial pole, looking from Houston. So if you start counting from there, 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 0. 0 is the celestial equator where the W is shown, west is shown, that is 0. Then minus 10, minus 20, minus 24. So when sun is at minus 24, that lower red arrow, that means sun has gone to Dakshinayana, maximum point. It is minus 24 degrees. It is winter in the northern hemisphere. At that time, the longitude, the second arrow, is Dhanishta. This is not true today. Today, winter solstice does not occur at Dhanishta Nakshatra. So when Lagada wrote Vedanga Jyotisha, he clearly said the sun and moon came together in Dhanishta Nakshatra. And we can date it to 1440 BCE based upon our planetarium software. So moving on, we have a beautiful story in Vishnu Purana. Using that, you can demolish this entire Aryan invasion theory. In Vishnu Purana, there's a story about Dhruva. Everybody knows the story of Dhruva. Dhruva had an unhappy childhood because his father decided that his older wife is not pretty. He married a younger, beautiful woman. And one fine day, Dhruva wanted to sit on his father's lap. And his younger wife shooed him away. Your place is not here. Poor boy is crying. Where is my place in the universe? His mother gives him karma theory. He is not happy. He goes off and says, I'll do tapasya and pray to Vishnu himself. Vishnu Bhagavan comes and asks, what do you want, Dhruva? He is in a state of bliss. He wants nothing. He says, I will make you into a motionless star. That is your position in the sky, high above everybody else, even above Saptarishis. Everybody will go in pradakshina around you. That is what Vishnu says. But look what he says in the bottom yellow thing. He says, your unhappy mother, Sumati, she will be near you for the period of one kalpa. This is the clue to us. Bhagavan is saying, not only will you be a pole star, but your mother will also be next to you. So if you go to today's, the right side is 2020, 2022, when I made this slide, Dhruva does not have a companion. But if I crank it back in time to 2800 BCE, in the left chart, you can see Thuban was a pole star, and next to that, there was a bright companion. Very clear evidence. Vishnu was not lying. Right here, we are seeing that whoever wrote Vishnu Purana, it was done in 2800 BCE, and not, as Wendy Doniger is saying, 300 current era, 500 current era. In 300 current era, we didn't have a pole star. They could not have observed a pole star. There's no pole star. Because of precession circle, we know this. So going forward, there is a book called Shatapatha Brahmana, written by the Rishi Yajnavalkya. Yajnavalkya is trying to tell us, how do you find the east direction? So he's saying Kritika Nakshatra does not move from the east direction. Therefore, you can set up your homa and your fire under the Kritika Nakshatra. He's telling how to find the east direction, right? Maximum auspiciousness. So if you look over here, I had to crank this back in time to 2982 BCE to find out where is the true east direction of Kritika. If somebody says, what a useless venture, wherever the sun rises, that is east direction. Is that true? No, sun is going through Dakshinayana up to minus 23.3 degrees, then Uttarayana up to 23.3 degrees. So where is east direction? Is it here, 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 and here? No. True east direction is when the sun is exactly on the equinox. And that is what we are seeing over there. Sun is the equinox, the equator, celestial equator, 0 degrees. And you can see Kritika Nakshatra there and sun there. So Yajnavalkya is talking about this phenomena. To simulate that, I had to go to 2982 BC, approximately 5,000 years ago. Many of our works are talking about Kali Yuga, Puranas, Aryabhatta, Pulisa Siddhanta, Aihole Temple, and so on, including the Britishers. Cassini and the Britishers, they refer to Surya Siddhanta as well as tables that came from Thailand. And they said that all these tables are referring to an absolute date of February 18th, 3102 BCE. All our calendars are based on that. Even today, when you do your Sandhya Vandanam and others, we are referring to this Kali Yuga from that date onwards, what today's date is. So we have got cultural memory of an ancient epoch, and that epoch is over here. And this I simulated in the software. So February 18, 3102 BC, we can see there's a clustering of Chandra, Guru, Shukran, Revati, Mangala, Buddhan, Shani. Everything is coming together in the Revati Nakshatra. This has been observed by our ancestors and referred to for the last 5,000 years. We have the story of Aditi, right? Everybody knows Aditi and Diti, Rishi Kashyapa, the Devas, Daityas, we know all that story. But in Aithriya Brahmana, there is a line. The sacrifice, Yajna, went away from the Devas. Devas were unable to perform any further ceremony. They did not know where it had gone to. They said to Aditi, let us know the sacrifice to thee. Aditi said, Tatastu, but I will choose a boon from you. They said, choose the boon. She said, all sacrifices will commence with me and end with me. Nobody understands what this is. But there are some intelligent Indians who have decoded this and said, our ancestors observed celestial events, festivals based on celestial calendar. Because of precision, my vernal equinox, that nakshatra that is supposed to be there, is no longer there. It is somewhere else. I don't know the auspicious time for my homa. So they've reset the calendar to something called Aditi. The vernal equinox begins with Aditi and ends with Aditi. So we have to find out what is Aditi in our nakshatra model and when was vernal equinox at Aditi. It turns out that Aditi is a collection of stars called Diti and Aditi. Near the blue arrow, you can see Diti and Aditi. It is part of something called Punarvashu nakshatra. In the Greek tradition, it's called Castor and Pollux. Those are Diti and Aditi. So if I simulate when vernal equinox had happened there, I have to go to 6000 BCE. This staggering time tells us by that time, Indians had a celestial calendar. 1,000 years prior to that, that calendar is no longer working. They have reset the calendar to Aditi, and they're using this calendar. That is what Aithriya Brahmana is trying to tell us over here. Similarly, we have got in Surya Siddhanta a grand conjunction in Mesha Rashi that comes out to 6779 BCE. Story of Ashwins. There's a lot I have to say on this. I'm looking at the time. I don't have the time to say this, but the date for Ashwin comes out to be in winter solstice, 7200 BCE. I don't know how to explain this in a short period of time, but do search for my name on medium.com, rajvedam.medium.com. Once upon a time, 9,000 years ago, where I'm describing the story of Ashwins in great detail. So the bottom line, we have great antiquity in Indian astronomy. Vedanga Jyotisha, 1400 BC, Dhruva story, 2800 BC, Shatapatha Brahmana 2980, Kali Yuga 3102, Aitreya Brahmana 6000, Ashwin 7200. Here is a question. If, as they allege, that Aryans had come to India in 1500 BC and composed the Vedic literature in India, because geographical identifiers of India are there, they didn't compose the Vedas in Central Asia. They composed it here because referencing the rivers in India, right? Not over there. So if they composed it here, how on earth do we have all these ancient things? How is it possible? How is it possible that our astronomy has got these great things over here? I've just given you a curation of some of these data points. There are thousands of them. Okay, so that is something that you should puzzle over. This is a rebuttal to Aryan invasion theory through the astronomical evidence. According to Max Muller, we are Chandas period, Mantra, Brahmana, Sutra period. But through astronomy, I'm showing that if he says Vedanga Jyotisha, which is part of the Sutra period, 200 BCE, but then we are shown that 1400 BC is a date for Vedanga Jyotisha. Brahmana period, he said 600 BC, but I've shown Kritika and Shatapada Brahmana to 3000 BC. Mantra period, Chandas period, Rig Veda stories of Aditi and Ashwini comes to 7200 BC. So clearly we have a problem. Linguistic theory is saying some things, but our evidence is showing something else. We can accuse Max Muller of having confirmation bias. That's what we call it today. Unfortunately, our academics continue to use this failed methodology. They're guilty of this. Great many other evidences don't fit this Aryan invasion. This is a paper that came out in 2023 that tries to look at linguistic analysis using the mathematics of something called Bayesian phylogenetics. The theory says, according to linguistics, that there were 3 waves in Central Asia. In Central Asia, 3000 BC, Central Asians, they domesticated the wild horse. Once they domesticated the wild horse, they went off and conquered Ukraine. Ukraine became the first wave, Balto-Slavic. That is the first Indo-European language, according to them. Then in the third wave, they came to India, the so-called Aryan invasion, 1500 BC. Therefore, this Iranian to Sanskrit split, according to linguistics, is 1500 BC. It's a recent one. This man's research is showing entirely opposite. If you look at what I put the arrows over there, Indic and Iranian, he's showing the common ancestor. Iranian language is this one, Sanskrit is this one. The common ancestor is happening 7,000 years before present. Whereas if you look at the Slavic and Baltic, the gold ones, it is coming to 5,000 years before present. So by his theory, he's showing the linguistic analysis you're following is nonsense. It looks like Iranian and Sanskrit are split 7,000 years before present, clearly showing out of India rather than into India. River Saraswati. How do we explain Saraswati River? The Rig Veda is talking about a powerful river flowing from the mountains to the samudra, to the seas. But in geology, we learned that this river dried up before 1900 BC. Because in northern India, there were tectonic plate movements. Because of those plate movements, what happened? Let me see. Yes, Sutlej used to feed into Saraswati, but it started feeding into Indus. It started the Saraswati. Also, Yamuna was feeding into Saraswati, but it now started flowing eastwards. Because of these reasons, Saraswati River is supposed to have dried out by 1900 BC. How can the Aryans who came to India in 1500 BC see a non-existent river, Saraswati, and talk about it as if it is a powerful river? We have a problem over there also. That is what this paper is showing. Then there are settlements all over Saraswati Sindhu. Today we have found archaeological settlements. That is what this paper is talking about. Every black dot you see there is a settlement besides a non-existent river, the dashed line. We don't have rivers there today, but then there are settlements that we're finding over there, clearly showing a river and settlements. And the carbon dating, I've given some dates over here. In Mehrgarh, the carbon dating is showing 7,400 BC or 9,000 years before present. That is that settlement's date. If you go to Kalibangan, I've again highlighted the earliest dates, 5,600 BCE. If you go to Rakigadi, earliest dates are 6,100 years before present. If you go to Birana, it is 9,000 years before present. These are carbon dating of artifacts we have found at these settlements that I'm talking to you about. So B.B. Lal has talked about continuity of civilization. He says if somebody tells you there's a Harappa period followed by a Vedic period, utter nonsense. He's saying the artifacts show continuity. For example, the Pashupati seal showing Proto-Shiva, that is in Mohenjo-daro, 3000 BC. Next to that, the swastika symbol. Swastika symbol is there even as a sign of auspiciousness in India today from ancient times. Then the two terracotta figurines showing females with the sindoor symbol. Even today, married women in India wear the sindoor symbol. It's a continuity from Harappa times to the present times. Then the terracotta figurine showing Namaste. Namaste is a deeply Vedantic concept of Advaita, saying that Narayana in me is bowing to Narayana in you. That is the kind of symbolism over there. What is that doing in Harappa? Then you see Shivalinga and Kalibangan, Yoga Asana, several terracotta figurines showing Yoga Asana. So he's saying these artifacts are there throughout, continuous. You cannot say Harappa period, Vedic period, Buddhist period, and all this nonsense because it is there all over the place. A paper came out in 2021, which I identified as similar to Pindadana. In Rajasthan, they discovered, I'll finish in about 5 minutes, they discovered some footballs over there, nutritional footballs, 7 of them, along with some ritual offerings over there. They analyzed what it is, legumes, moong dal, and other such things. And I said, even today, as offering to ancestors, we give rice balls. It's a continuity of cultural practice from Harappa to our present times. Iron. They said that once the Central Asians had discovered iron and the chariots and the sword, they got iron sword. Suddenly they could go on a conquering spree. Harappans had bronze instruments, they had iron instruments. So people like Tiwari, Banerjee, they said that Aryans brought Iron Age to India. But this professor in Gachibowli is in the heart of Hyderabad, in the University of Hyderabad campus, he's found artifacts that have been dated to 2200 BC, 2400 BC, and so on, showing that iron was there in India for a long time. This is a Japanese professor. He made an archaeological survey of all the ancient iron found in India in various places. And you find Gachibowli, 2200 BC, Brahmagiri, Kudremukh, Bhadravati in Karnataka, a lot of iron is found over there. Here is an instance of a technology that is migrating northward. Earliest iron is in southern India. When you go to northern India, you find 1300 BC, 1200 BC, in the northwest, 1200 BC. If iron came from northwest India into India by the Aryans, we expect to see the oldest iron in northwest and the later iron later. But this technology is clearly showing it is a south to north migration. It is similar to what the Puranas are saying, Vaivasutta Manu going to north and then spreading over there. It's not the same time period, but we are seeing a similar kind of thing. Chariots. So we found in Sanauli several chariot burials. They said Aryans brought horse and chariot to India, but by 2000 BC, we are seeing that chariots are already in India of a warrior culture. So in conclusion, in the first talk, I talked about the red line thing. Indian deep history taught in schools and universities utterly wrong. We focused on the 5 agencies that are distorting the narratives on Indian history. In today's talk now, I've shown strong evidence to uphold the antiquity of the Indian civilization. I, as a scientist, have used multiple disciplines. I used archaeology, astronomy, genetics, climatology, various things. I could very quickly put together a few facts over there to show there is no invasion of migration and the antiquity of Indian civilization. In the following talks, I'm going to talk about the knowledge systems of Indians and how it impacted the world. Okay, with that, I have come to an end. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vedam. नमस्ते, आज के सत्संग में आप सभी का स्वागत है. We have a lot of attendance on YouTube today. So just for future reference, those who are coming in first time or rarely come, you can take the benefit of our satsang every Sunday, and I'll share that with you in a second. So Arya Samaj Houston is very busy all week long, and this is an important message that we should take away. Saturday, Sunday, we have yoga at 8 a.m. Weekly satsang every Sunday, 9:45, 12 noon, which has Havan Bhajans, Pravachans, and Priti Bhoj. You have evidence, all are part of it today. Schools, we have two schools whose admissions is open, DAV Montessori Elementary School, VSS Houston, I'll talk about that in a second, and Vedic Education for Adults. It's an all week long program, and you shall see the details. First of all, DAV Montessori Elementary School. What is it? I call it a hidden gem for Houston. A school that was founded back in 2001 with the idea of empowering knowledge at the root level. So we have, admissions go for 2.5 years to 5th grade. 2.5 years to first grade follow 100% Montessori curriculum, plus 20% of Hindi as second language, Vedic prayers, and yoga. So we have enhanced the whole program to enrich our students with the tradition and culture of India, along with Vedic prayers and yoga, and learn Hindi. Some may ask, what about other languages? You bring me the students, we will add other languages. That's not a problem. Do not ask me for Spanish, but it will be Indian languages can be added. Let the students' class be there to demand that request. And we are open to it. Very important message you see in the middle of the slide. Those 3 trophies are not by chance. Our school has won 3 times in a row, 22, 23, and 24, PSIA as a state champion. India became world champion yesterday. We have champions right in Houston. PSIA stands for Private School Interscholastic Intramural Academy. I mean, this is the key for Houston, for Texas area. They won first the Houston district and then the Texas. So that's a big achievement. And the message here is don't let your kids and grandkids be away from it. So you have admissions still going on in all grade levels. And like I said, if we have the collection of students who want Gujarati or Punjabi or something, we shall add the class, but I cannot promise you today until I see the enrollment. So that is our promise. Second thing I hear from Hindu University and other people, sir, why are you stopping at 5th grade? We need to continue this further. My message back again is, give me the students, we shall continue. But I need those students here to make the class worthwhile for teachers and students alike. 2 kids class is not useful from a social level, education level for the students, and it's very discouraging for the teacher. So we are committed to growing it. Give me the students. If we have the students, we shall grow. There is no question about it. You can reach Aarti Khanna ji, our director, at by reaching out to either the phone number or the director at davhouston.org. Very, very important. It is the right time. We're getting into July. School starts on August 12th. So let's get, or 13th, whatever that Monday is. Let's get it. The second school I talked about multiply. It's our Sunday school, which runs in parallel to the Satsang. That's the VSS Houston, just to avoid the confusion of what's DAV. And this has been running since 1994. And we've had a lot of students come in, and I'm a product of my kids coming to the school back in 94. So we have a lot of connection with Samaj, management committees like that. So let your children who are KG to 12th grade join us. Our AYM people, which is Arya Yuva Mandal, take part in community activities along with every other week they have the educational classes on various topics relating to Hindu literature, traditions, and service. So when time permits, I'd like Dr. Vedam to come back and give them a synopsis in one class. I mean, that's going to be extremely, extremely useful for them. The other one we started back in 2020 is the VSS Global. Now we realize that not everybody is here in Houston to be able to attend these classes. So Acharya is holding this on Saturdays. Again, multiple sessions, etc. Right now it's at 11 a.m. Central to 1 p.m. Central on Saturdays, which covers pretty much from West Coast to East Coast or East Coast to West for decent time. But if we have more attendance and a group needing a class in the afternoon, Acharya is willing to do that. So these are multiple opportunities for those who are in Houston and those of your friends and family who are not here. So please take advantage of this. All the classes start August 12th, which is a Sunday. Then we have the Vedic Sanskriti's, Vedic education for adults I talked about. They had the last session a couple of days ago. They also kick off back again in August. So we cover our 2.5 years to adults all the way, enriching them different ways. Dr. Vedam talked about what's coming from Puranic, Vedas, and so forth. When you attend Acharyaji's pravachan on Sundays, I mean, he's a special guest lecture today or next 2 weeks. We talk about the basis that's coming out of Vedas, which is no different than his findings, but these are coming out of Vedas. Now, which are the rishis who created Vedas? You can look at the back picture when you get up. 4 rishis pictures there for all the 4 Vedas: Rig Veda, Samveda, Yajurveda, and Atharvaveda. And that's where the Vedas came from, not from Aryans who, so-called Aryans, migrated from Iran. So today we have a special lecture on fatty liver disease. This impacts 38% adult Indians and 35% children. This will take place at 1 o'clock in the library. So please, after the Priti Bhoj, join this. Dr. Sudha Kodali is there to talk to us about it. With that, I ask everybody to please rise for Aarti. Thank you.
Om Jai Jagdish Hare Swami Jai Jagdish Hare Bhakt Janon ke sankat Das Janon ke sankat Kshan mein dur kare Om Jai Jagdish Hare Jo dhyaave phal paave दुख विनशे मन का स्वामी दुख विनशे मन का सुख संपत्ति कर आवे सुख संपत्ति कर आवे कष्ट मिटे तन का ओम जय जगदीश हरे मात पिता तुम मेरे शरण कहूँ मैं किसकी स्वामी शरण कहूँ मैं किसकी तुम बिना पूजा प्रभु बिना और न पूजा आस करूँ मैं जिसकी ओम जय जगदीश हरे तुम पूर्ण परमात्मा तुम अंतर्यामी स्वामी तुम अंतर्यामी पार ब्रह्म परमेश्वर पार ब्रह्म परमेश्वर तुम सबके स्वामी ओम जय जगदीश हरे तुम करुणा के सागर तुम पालन करता स्वामी तुम पालन करता मैं सेवक तुम स्वामी मैं सेवक तुम स्वामी कृपा करो भरता ओम जय जगदीश हरे तुम हो एक गोचर सबके प्राणपति स्वामी सबके प्राणपति किस विध विडूदयामय, किस विध प्रभामय, सिंदूर सुमति रोम जय जगदीश हरे। दीन बंधु दुख हरता, तुम रक्षक मेरे, स्वामी तुम रक्षक मेरे। करुणा हस्त बढ़ाओ, अपनी शरण लगाओ, द्वार पर मैं तेरे, ओम जय जगदीश हरे। विषय विकार मिटाओ, पाप हरो देवा, स्वामी कष्ट हरो देवा। श्रद्धा भक्ति बढ़ाओ, श्रद्धा प्रेम बढ़ाओ, संतन की सेवा। ओम जय जगदीश हरे, जय जगदीश हरे, स्वामी जय जगदीश हरे। भक्त जनों के संकट, दास जनों के संकट, क्षण में दूर करे। ओम जय जगदीश हरे, ओम जय जगदीश हरे, ओम जय जगदीश हरे। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। हे नाथ सब सुखी, कोई न हो दुखारी, सब हो निरोग भगवन, धन धान्य के भंडारी। सब भाव से संसार के पति को, दुखिया न कोई होवे, सृष्टि में प्राण धारी। दुखिया न कोई होवे, सृष्टि में प्राण धारी। शांति पाठ। शांतिरंतरिक्षं शांति, पृथिवी शांतिरापः शांतिरोषधयः शांतिः, वनस्पतयः शान्तिर्विश्वे देवाः शान्तिर्ब्रह्म शान्तिः, सर्वं शान्ति शान्तिरेव शान्तिः, सामा शान्तिरेधि। ॐ शांति शांति शांति। उद्घोष। जो बोले सो अभय।
सत्य सनातन वैदिक धर्म की जय।
मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम श्री रामचंद्र जी की
जय।
योगेश्वर श्री कृष्ण जी की
जय।
महर्षि दयानंद जी की
जय।
ओम का झंडा
ऊंचा रहे,
आर्य समाज
अमर रहे,
वेद की ज्योति
जलती रहे।
प्रणव ध्वनि। भोजन मन। अन्न परे अन्नस्य नो देवो न वस्य प्रदातारं तारिषौ नो देहि द्विपदे चतुष्पदे ओम शांति शांति शांति। सबको अभिवादन हम सबकी ओर से। नमस्कार।